Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you appreciate this content, please give us a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Rachel Cox on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from San Antonio, Texas. She's an Air Force registered nurse. She's also an NPC bikini competitor, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle? What was your motivation?
So when I think back in 2014, I'd been out of college for like 2 years. And in college, I gained the freshman 15. I'd been an athlete my whole life, but college came and when you are in college, you drink a lot more, you are not eating very well, you forget that you don't have that high school metabolism anymore.
I miss
So
that so much.
know, right? And so I gained a lot of weight because I just stopped working out and I was just eating whatever I wanted to. And then I got out of college. I lost a little bit of weight just without doing anything, just because I wasn't partying and all that stuff. But then around 2014, I was like, okay, it's time to like really change things. And I had done like yo-yo diets. I had done random stuff like Beachbody, but nothing. I didn't stick to anything. So finally, I started lifting weights with one of my best friends, and so we were doing that, and then I started looking at my diet, and I actually don't even remember what I started doing. I don't know if I was tracking macros or just eating more healthy. I really don't remember, but that kind of started it. And then in 2015, I was actually in Japan, and they had this amateur bodybuilding show there, and so I was gonna do that. I didn't end up doing it because the best friend that I actually had been working out with, she got in a car accident and she did not make it. So that event obviously was very traumatic and changed like basically everything from then on. So when I got back from Japan, I was having a really hard time, and someone asked me if I wanted to do a competition. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. At first, I was a little bit hesitant because I was actually still I was in school to get my master's and still working full time. So I was a little bit hesitant, but at that point, was just looking for anything to like try to help myself get through this time. So dove into that in 2016, and I did 3 shows then, 3 shows in 2016. 2017, I did one show, and then 2018, I did one show. So I've done 5, but yeah, really haven't looked back on the non-health and fitness stuff since then.
That's awesome. So, at what point did you join the military? How old were you when you joined?
So I was 22. I've been in for almost 6 years.
Oh, wow. So, being a registered nurse, what do you have to go through, especially for the military? Did you already take nurse, or did you already take those classes in college to get into that, or was it something when you got into the military then you had to do stuff?
So with ROTC, so I went to college when I was like right out of high school. So I did the nursing school. I went to the University of Louisville. And so with ROTC, you have to do like leadership classes and stuff with the Air Force, along with getting your nursing degree. And then once I got my nursing degree, that's when I commissioned, and went active duty.
That's awesome. So, how do you think also being a nurse and seeing, people sometimes at their weakest state, or people who've gone through really traumatic things, how has that really inspired you when it comes to realize like, hey, I'm a healthy individual who works out, who is in great shape. How much does that serve as motivation for you, seeing sometimes people at their lowest, and then does that make you really appreciate where you're at in life more?
So I'm actually a labor and delivery nurse, so I have a little
Oh, okay.
different of a perspective, but I get to see, I still see like the unhealthy, and I see, different things, but I think the perspective that I get to see is, so like during a prep, or like even when you're working out, you are pushing yourself to get through whatever it is that you're getting through. And so I see moms like going through labor. And so in that aspect, I get to see kind of like, hey, like you can do this, you can do anything you put your mind to. So it's kind of like I kind of use that to look at it in that perspective. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always love to sort of make the statement that if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, their diet, their training, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. There's so many things that add up to the package that you end up seeing being. And like I say, if you walk up to someone and say like, hey, this body part of yours is just awesome, what do you do for that body part specifically? What works best for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you. Was that a struggle for you at all, sort of figuring out what works specifically best for your body?
Um, I would say actually, so when I was just trying like yo-yo kind of stuff, yeah, definitely. Cause you would try like, oh, I'm running, 8 miles a week. Why am I not losing weight? Obviously that's not gonna work for most people if you don't have your diet in check. But for me, that once I started just lifting weights, that was when I saw the most change. And then with the diet, but of course, like anything, how much cardio you do, what you're eating, there's so much that goes into it that I think even now, I'm still like kind of trying to figure things out because as your body changes, so do the needs that your body has. So yeah, I think once I realized that lifting weights was probably going to be the best for my lifestyle and what I wanted to achieve, but it did take, I mean, all of college of when I was doing just whatever I was doing, maybe working out once a week and then through like a couple years. So it did take me a little while to figure that out.
So I always love to break the stereotype. I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years because of Instagram, but a lot of women still believe that if they touch one weight, they're just going to hulk out, and put on 50 pounds of muscle. I mean, I always say to that, if someone figured that out, I'd pay them all the money that I ever made just because they'd have found the secret to, the good life, basically. So you kind of mentioned it that, I mean, women, a lot of them still do have that fear. Did you ever have specifically that fear that like, oh, I don't want to get too big? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you hear that all the time. What is your main response to that?
So I actually definitely had that
Mhm.
thought at one time in my life. And when I started lifting weights, I was doing a program that was specifically for women. And back then I thought, higher reps, lower weight, and I would not pick up literally higher than a 15-pound weight. And that was like my top. So I did think that. However, I eventually, as I did more research and as I started getting into bodybuilding, that's when you realize, like, okay, that's not going to happen. First of all, women don't have testosterone, like as much testosterone. We do have testosterone, but as much. So that's not going to happen anyways. You could literally lift so much weight and it's still going to take like probably 5 years if you're natural. And even if someone does take steroids, you're still probably not going to get jacked right away. So my main response is just that we don't have the hormones to get jacked. Yes, it's possible, but I always do tell people it takes years and years to build muscle. Like I've been lifting weights now for 4 years and I'm not by any means jacked.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's such a long-term process, and I will give credit. I mean, there is like the 1%ers out there that are just genetic freaks where they can, where they just stay, or a lot of people that look like they might take some stuff, but they really just don't. They're just born that. Like if you were to say pictures of them when they were kids, you're like, oh yeah, you're definitely just born like that. And I hate those people more than anything else, just because there's a guy at our gym that he comes in probably like once a week, and he's the most in shape person there, and it's just like, I hate you. Like it's like, go,
yeah.
why are you even in here? You just here to taunt us? That's what it seems like most of the time. But everyone always seems to have that one body part, or everyone does have that one body part that when they start training really, really is just so well developed that they don't have to train it as much. I mean, it's kind of their go-to. And then everyone always has that one body part that really lags behind that they sort of have to train into overdrive to get it to catch up with everything else. What are those for you?
My upper body, I mean, I don't do biceps
Mhm.
very much because the second I pick up a weight, they're like, whoosh. So I don't train my biceps much. My shoulders are also pretty close to that. But I still do train those because for bikini bodybuilders, we do shoulders and butts.
Mhm.
And then lagging behind. So I actually do put muscle on pretty easily. Just my genetics are just like that. However, when I'm trying to lean down, my lower body, like my legs, take so long to get that weight off. So like an upper body, lower body thing for me.
Oh, 100%. I get that all the time. For me, it's the exact same too. I mean, my back, I could train back once a year and it would still look like I compete. That's the only thing in me that looks like I could maybe compete at all, where everything else is just that you look at everything else and you're like, oh, okay. He's just in really good shape. But yeah, I mean, I'm 6'3", so legs for me, I mean, I hate it so much. I have to sometimes train it twice a week. It's my least favorite thing to do. But you have to do it because I don't want to have a big upper body and be that one guy that has, I mean, I had one when I asked that question, one girl put her calves up on the table and she's like, these calves, and I was like, they're bigger than my thighs, and I was pissed off because I was like, okay, we're done here. It's like, get out of here, we're done talking now. So yeah,
I
just.
say my calves actually they will be the same my whole entire life, and
Yes.
people are like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, walk around, I don't know." I never train them.
I could do 10,000 calf lifts and I could even inject pure muscle into the calves and nothing would happen. It's one of those things where, I mean, I've tried everything when it comes to workouts. Nothing works where you just got to accept it. I just got to accept because I used to be really lanky. So I think that's just one of those after effects that won't really take into place. But I always love to say, too, I mean, if you were to poll the general population, only a small singular percentage of people would probably be willing to go up on stage in a bikini and pose in front of people. I mean, it's something that takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts. Was that something that you ever had to work on? Were you ever nervous or were you ever apprehensive about it? Or like some of the people that we have on the show that just say like, you know what, after our prep and after working out for those long, hard months, you really just want to go up on stage and show off. What was that? What was your opinion on that? Or what was your thought process?
I was never nervous until I literally got backstage and was about to go on. And then you get all these kind of butterflies. But up until that point, I was like ready just because you do work so hard for it. And I've never really been someone who's had like stage fright or anything like that. So I think people that like really don't like to be up in front of people and have like that stage fright, I think leading up to it, it has a lot more anxiety. But for me, I don't like that stuff doesn't bother me. So it was just like right before I went on stage that I got nervous.
And what was your first prep like? Because for a lot of people, they don't understand just getting into shape to be able to go onto a prep is very very difficult in and of itself. Finding the right nutrition, finding the right training, but going on a prep is just notching everything up to an extreme level when it comes to your diet, your nutrition. Everything needs to be perfect. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so what you said is actually very true. There's a lot that goes into before a prep. And so I was lucky and well, not lucky enough, I worked for it, but I had already been lifting for almost a year when I decided to go into a prep, or maybe a little bit longer than that. So I was kind of already ready. Maybe my nutrition wasn't where it really needed to be yet. But the biggest thing going into a prep is you can't just go into a prep coming off the streets. You really have to like prepare your body for the prep if you want to be successful and not completely mess up your body. So, but then going into the prep, I didn't really know what to expect. But it's almost one of those things. And my first prep was a lot different than my other preps because I saw my first prep, like I would cheat on the diet every once in a while. I mean, I went to the gym almost all the times I was supposed to, but it was the diet that was really the hardest part. But even with like cheating on my diet and stuff, it was still like a super struggle. But then once I realized what I really needed to do if I wanted to be successful, then it was like, all right, you just put your mind to it and you just do it. I mean, that's really all there is. That first one was the hardest, but then once you realize it, you just put your head down, do the work, and sometimes it's hour by hour.
Oh,
And then other
one
days it's
100%. And probably one of my favorite questions to ask is, as you can see, I'm a very pale individual myself. I mean, I've never been tan a day in my life. I always or farmer's tan, but that's not a real tan. I mean, I get burned. Just my pure Norwegian skin is just not really good with the sun. But when it comes to putting that tan on, what is that experience like for you? Because we have so many people on that talk about when they put it on, you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that feeling like for you when you get that tan on?
um yeah, so you know the phrase if you can't tone it, tan it.
Mm.
Well, it works for bodybuilders too. Like you said, your muscles just pop and you're like, "Oh my goodness." I would say though, my first prep, I didn't see it as much. I mean, I was like, wow, like this is cool. But when I went to my first national show and I was very shredded, when I put that tan on, it was like, I didn't even know who I was looking at. Like, it was kind of like a surreal moment where you're like, I did this. Like, this is what I look like. Cause I almost looked like, no, not almost. I did look like the people that I used to look at and be like, how do they do that? You know what I mean? So it was like, it's kind of a surreal moment.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize, I mean, just the dedication when you have that on, you can't touch anything. You got to be basically like a statue. Can't sit down. You got to some people bring their own bed sheets if they're staying at a hotel. I mean, just the struggle in and of that is something that I love to bring up because most people just don't realize when they're looking at them on stage what the people had to go through backstage to get that look. But
Yeah.
I mean, the most important question I love to ask is, I mean, I ask this to all my guests, whether they be up and coming musicians. I ask them, what's that feeling like performing live in front of people? But that also applies to my bodybuilders that I have on the show. What is that feeling like for you when you get to step on stage, show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months for, and then you finally get to display that to people, and all of the hard work seems to have paid off? What is that feeling like for you?
Um, it feels I don't I don't even know how to describe it really because it can be nerve-wracking and it is nerve-wracking and you're like shaking, but at the same time, you know what you put into that. And I would say this past show that I did in October was the first time that I really felt this like huge sense of confidence because that's a huge thing is confidence on stage. Like you put in all this work, but then you need that confidence on stage. And I think it's because it was my fifth show that I finally got that confidence that I actually had fun up there. And I have fun at every show, but this time was just different. And so it's cool to just be up there and with all the other girls that have worked so hard. Like it doesn't matter what people look like on that stage. You know that no matter what they look like, they worked really hard to get there. And so I think that's really cool. And I think people a lot of times think that girls are mean in this because we're all being judged on our bodies. But that's not the case at all. Almost everyone that I've met has been awesome and supportive just because we all know what it took to get there.
100%. That's one thing that I found out too, where it's like a family, and it's also a huge support system for anyone that competes. I mean, there's so many times. I mean, just going on people's Instagram and seeing all the positive comments that they get from other competitors. I mean, it really, really is amazing. But now we get to one of my fun questions. What is your go-to post-show meal?
Oh, well, I always like donuts.
Yep.
So yeah, so I usually will have donuts after. I don't really have a go-to meal though. I take that back. I think I do almost always get a cheeseburger at some time, but I don't really have one meal that I love because it's like whatever I'm just feeling at the time. And half the time, like if you plan something, whatever you planned is going to be closed by the time the show's over because they go really late. So I just learned to not plan anything. But I also am a really big sweets person after a show. So give me the candy, the brownies, whatever.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would, if I ever competed, I'd probably just go to Five Guys like that and just get double hamburger, and that would
Yeah.
be definitely my thing. But now, probably, I mean, the most important, I think, personally, question, and because it's not discussed really that much on Instagram, not that many people are too aware of it. And I'll give you just an example. So I had a friend who came up to me for a New Year's Eve party and said, "Hey, Ryan, I watch your podcast. I really, really like it. I had no idea that these bodybuilders that you have on, because he also works out a lot. He goes, I had no idea, but he's never really been into the whole bodybuilding scene. He goes, I had no idea that they didn't look that way, like almost all year round. I thought that like that stage look that they had, they were able to maintain that." And I told him, I was like, "Oh no, 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 no. And that's also a myth that a lot of people have as well, is that they don't realize that you guys, through all of your dieting and working out and everything else, you've sort of manipulated your body into a look that is not sustainable." I mean, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of people are at very unhealthy weights when it comes down to show day, where it's not sustainable. And like I said, there are some of those genetic freaks where they can sort of maintain that a little ways afterwards, doing whatever they do. But you are going to have to put on weight regardless after a show. Was that ever a struggle for you, sort of realizing like, hey, I worked my butt off for months upon months, and I am eventually going to have to lose a little bit of that hard work that I put on? Was that ever been a struggle for you? Because we have so many guests that come on and talk about, some of them got anxious or depressed. Was that ever a difficulty for you?
It's a struggle every time,
Mhm.
and I'm still dealing with it right now from October. I've never had any like depression or anything from it because I do know that I have to put weight on. The one thing that I will say that's probably the hardest part is you just get this body dysmorphia because you are used to looking at your body in this way that is unhealthy. It's usually an unhealthy body fat percentage for a short amount of time. So if you do it right, it won't have too many long-term effects. There are a lot of people that do it wrong and you will have long-term effects. But looking at your body like that, and then when you change, like right now, I'm at a very normal weight, but when I look at myself, I see all these things wrong. So that's actually something that I'm really working on this time is to learning to love my body in each stage. So yeah, it's a struggle every time for sure, but I think each time I'm getting better at not only just eating for health afterwards and not just eating like crazy, but loving where I'm at in this stage. So
Yeah, absolutely. And now, I mean, being a registered nurse, and like you said, you work with a lot of labor. What is your opinion on? Because there's so many people that have so many different opinions on pregnant women and like what they should do working out wise, what their limitations should be. I mean, how they should do it. And you see some of these Instagram people where they're like moms that are like 8 months pregnant and they still have like six pack abs, and you're like, okay, what? How is that possible? I mean, you've seen a lot of women probably, going to labor and whatnot. But what is your personal opinion based on some of the stuff that you've seen of what pregnant women should do? Because I know a lot of people do say exercise is great for them. I mean, it used to be they say that you shouldn't exercise, but now basically everyone agrees that a healthy amount of exercise is great for pregnancy. But what do you specifically think really works well for pregnant women when it comes to still being able to keep a somewhat fit build so that it's easier for them also once they give birth to still get back to that weight quicker?
yeah, so definitely the recommendation is, if don't once you get pregnant, you shouldn't be starting anything new. So whatever you did before you were pregnant, you can continue doing that. The experience that I've seen is most women get to a point either in the beginning where they're really sick and they just don't have the energy to work out like they used to, or once your belly gets bigger, I mean, you're not going to be able to go and squat 150 pounds just because you have that limitation. But I will say, whatever they can do. I mean, there's been women who run marathons, and if that's what you were doing before you got pregnant, then by all means, and if you can do it. But yeah, I mean, definitely not starting anything. But I mean, you can. There's no harm to you or the baby if you're doing what you were doing before. There's like certain amount of weight that you do have to gain to have a healthy baby and give baby the nutrition. So as long as you're gaining that healthy weight, then yeah, there's really no reason not to work out. And if you look great still, then that's awesome.
I know, it's like some of these bikini girls that I see online when sometimes they get pregnant and they still look amazing, and I'm like, yeah, I mean that's also one of the benefits of working out as well. But I mean, one of the things that I always these next two questions are two of my favorite questions to ask, and the first one is, when I started getting into college and working out a lot and putting on a lot of muscle, I noticed the one negative thing is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months, so every time they come home with groceries, I basically lift the car into the driveway like I had to do this morning. Has that been a similar experience with you, where you just, because people assume that you are a bodybuilder, and especially when you're in prep, where they see the way that you look, that they just assume that you can do favors for them?
um Not necessarily favors, but people will always say like, "Oh, the you're the in shape one," and I'm like, I actually don't really lift that heavy
Hmm.
of weight anymore.
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't really lift that heavy of weight. I just look like I
Hmm.
do. But I definitely, I mean, people will always like ask me questions, of
Hmm.
course, and with my Instagram, I put it out there that I am available to answer questions, but I'm not a personal trainer, so
Hmm.
that is one thing that people will ask me stuff, and I'm like, I'm not a personal trainer. I just know from my own knowledge and experience. But
Hmm.
yeah, not necessarily favors. I think guys probably get that a lot more than girls.
Yes, unfortunately. I mean, like last summer, every other weekend, it was, Ryan, can you come help me? I'm moving out of my parents' house. I need you to lift my furniture. So it got to a point where I did realize, it's gonna happen just because of the way that I look, and it got to a point where I just said, hey, as long as we get the furniture lifting after I'm done working out, because I'm not gonna get tired from lifting your stupid furniture, so that I won't be able to work out that day. Well, and also, I mean, if I had no muscle at all, still being 6'3", people would just look at me and say like, oh yeah, that guy can do it. So it's definitely a double-edged sword for me. But now, my favorite question to ask out of all the questions I'll ever ask is, I mean, again, everyone, multi-million dollar idea, so get on it. But when it comes to clothes for fit women, your clothing options can be limited. I always like to say, I mean, and for guys too, for the guys that have on, but that's a whole different topic. But for the girls, I mean, if you have big shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, where, because you're supposed to have a big lower body, but then a small waist, so not a lot of jeans are going to fit. What are some ways that you sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited?
You just have to find the one that works. And to be honest with you, the way that my body changes, whether I'm in season or like off the season, it can be pretty difficult because I have these like different sizes. Like I obviously do not fit in what I fit in October, but most people, they'll just find like one thing that works. Or me, I don't have like one brand that I go to. I just will try stuff on, and I'm like, if it works, I'll buy it, and I'll probably wear that same pair of jeans for however long until I find a new one. So, and actually kind of probably a little bit lucky because I'm only 5'2". So finding clothes for me, I'm like a pretty small person anyways. So it's not as hard for me as someone who's like 5'5" or 5'6". They probably have it a little harder time.
Yep, we hear that all the time. And again, you guys, I've had two fashion people on, and I told them, I said, I got an idea for you, but you got to get on it. But they haven't yet. So again, everyone out there, it's a multi-million-dollar idea. Get on that. I mean, I've had 100 guests on here that would love to get a hold of anything if you made some like good fitness clothes that work for a lot of people. And I mean, I feel especially bad for the people that come on that have like corporate jobs who then have to try to wear like suits and all that stuff. That's just a pain in and of itself. But I mean, you get to wear the scrub, so it's got it. So I mean, that's a little bit of a benefit, but yeah,
Yeah.
still a huge struggle. But now we go to our audience favorite, my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire where I'm going to ask Rachel here about a dozen or so questions and see how she stacks up to all the other health and fitness guests we've had on. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh gosh. Um, let me look at my
No
playlist.
problem.
Let's see here what I've been listening to. I love Jason Derulo, but
Ooh.
let's see what I've really been listening to lately.
I had a band on that actually played with him for one show in Nashville.
Really,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Um, I, you know what? I've been listening to let's just say Cardi B because that any of her songs I'll
Mhm.
play over and over in the gym. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm more of an old school, like I'm an 80s guy, so like that cheesy 80s music. I mean, I'm only 24, but still, when that 80s music, I got to get my Rocky 4 soundtrack, which is the cheesiest soundtrack of all time, but it's so cheesy that it's great. And then leg days, if I hate myself on those days, so I got to get some heavy metal, some Iron Maiden and some Metallica just to inspire me.
That's definitely not me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm lucky where at my home, I have a really nice gym, so I work out at home like 75% of the time. But the times that I do go into a regular gym, I'm one of those people where I have to wait for the beat to drop for my music. So let's say that I'm doing like a lat pull down, I'll be standing there or I'll be waiting there for like 30 seconds, and then sometimes people come up to me and they're like, "Hey, are you all right? Did you like pull something in your back or whatever?" I was like, "No, just waiting for the beat to drop." So I am known throughout the gym as the guy that waits for the beat to drop. But you know what? It's worth it to get a good set in with the beat drop because then it really does help because I've tried it both ways and it's a lot more effective for me. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, wow, these are questions that make me think.
That's why I added the on the spot to after Didi.
Honestly, I would probably choose. Is it weird to say Channing Tatum? I don't think I would be working out. I'd probably be looking at him the whole time, but
That's what I would say, but yeah, no, he's actually been in. Okay, so one of the questions that I used to ask, but I don't ask anymore, just because I like to mix it up, was if you could have anything on the planet, what would it be? Like if everything was up for auction, you could have one. One person said Channing Tatum, and I was like, okay, that's a human being, so that's a little different than an item, but I'll take it. But yeah, I mean yeah, Channing Tatum, yeah, I would. That would be an interesting work, and yeah, again, like when you said Channing Tatum, I was like, she ain't gonna work out with Channing Tatum. She's gonna look at him. Let's be
yeah,
honest, but
I mean,
it's
so
still worth
I
it.
would work out, but
Yeah, it would still be, yeah, for you. It would be worth it. For me, I mean, I have no idea who I probably like an Arnold or something, just because.
I would actually. I changed my mind. I would totally pick The Rock. Who doesn't want to work out with The Rock?
All right, so you're gonna be like our 100th guest, and you're gonna be like our 86th or 87th, I think, that has chosen The Rock. So I was going to. I was going to, but now I'm gonna have to start on the next one because you're gonna be, I think, exactly our 100th health and fitness guest. Now I'm gonna have to make it where I'm gonna say other than the Dwayne the Rock Johnson, if you could work out with any celebrity, because it got to a point where it was just The Rock every single time, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
All
But
right,
yeah,
then
I
let's stick
completely
with
understand.
Channing Tatum.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I completely understand that answer though. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
um, almond milk. No matter what, I need almond milk.
Believe it or not, that is probably our fourth most popular answer. We've had that like 5 or 6 times on. I had
Serious.
no idea. I mean, I've never drank almond milk. I stick with the regular dairy milk. What I mean, as someone who's probably drank both, what is almond? How different does almond milk taste as opposed to regular milk?
Oh, it tastes pretty different, but almond milk is so versatile because I use it in my coffee. I use it if I'm eating cereal. I'll use it in a protein shake.
Hmm.
I mean, there's just so much you can do with it. But and the biggest thing about it is it's just low calorie. It's 30 calories for one cup of almond milk, so it's basically nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess so. That's awesome. I mean, the one answer that really, really surprised me that a lot of people got, I think it's gotten like 4 or 5 answers as mustard, because a lot of these competitors, I didn't realize mustard, you know, 0 calories, 0 fat. So a lot of the bodybuilders, especially the guys, put it on their chicken just to give it a little bit of flavor. But I always tell them, it's like, if you have to do that, you might want to reevaluate your life. You have to put mustard on your chicken to make it taste better. But
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
I
I'm.
actually have like 5 different mustards in
Mhm.
my fridge, but
Yeah. Well, I was a mustard kid until about 4, and then you know, I just changed to ketchup. But yeah, my uncle is obsessed with that. So yeah, whenever he comes over, and if he makes like corn dogs or whatnot, yeah, we have to, you know, we have to have it, and his mustard. But yeah, I personally don't like it. But yeah, whatever it gets it to make, whatever gets something to taste better. Because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when I was a kid, I sometimes put my broccoli in ketchup just to make it, just so I could be able to taste it. Yeah, I know I get that reaction all the time, but hey, it got me the $1 that my parents would give me if I finished all my broccoli. So, you know, I was like 3 years old. So, you know, you do what you have to do. But now we go on to our next question. So, out of all the people that follow you on Instagram, what is one thing that they would be surprised to know about you if they met you in person?
um I think a lot of people don't know how tall I am.
Mhm.
Like I'm not even 5'2".
Mhm.
So I think that's the biggest thing. Other than that, I'm actually very, very transparent on my Instagram. Like most people know most things, not most things about me, but a lot of things. But another thing I guess I don't really talk about too much is I'm from a family of 5 kids. So and I'm the oldest, and I don't talk about that too much, but that's probably another thing that people would be surprised about.
Yep, I have 2 brothers myself, but yeah, 5, yeah, I don't know how I would deal if I had 2 more siblings, because having 2 brothers is enough sometimes, at least during the holidays when we get everyone together.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people, that's the height thing, is that we get all the time, because like I said, some of these photos make some of these people look like they're like 6 feet tall, and then when you meet them in person, you're like, oh, okay, that's different. Where I'm the exact opposite, where then they meet me and they're like, oh, you're tall. So I was like, yep, you know, it works either ways. But now, what is one thing that you would change about the sport of bodybuilding if you had the all-knowing power to do so?
Um, I think that I would definitely I think I wish there were better coaches, honestly. Because it's becoming a sport that um can be very unhealthy. And if you don't have a good coach, that's when you're going to be unhealthy. And it's even if you have a great coach, it still could be unhealthy, but hopefully they have your best interest in mind, and can kind of steer you in the right direction. But I definitely think, especially for people starting out, if you don't know what you don't know. And so if you're going into a prep and getting down to like 800 calories, then you can really do some serious damage to your hormones. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would change. Sometimes I think I wish that they did test for steroids, but at the same time, like I personally like don't really care, and it's almost like a challenge. Like, hey, if I can do this naturally when there's other people doing steroids, then that's cool. But whatever people want to do to bring in their best is fine. But yeah, I think just better coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've never done any drugs myself, and I have no intention of ever doing them. But just for the people that always, you know, think that that's like the worst thing you do, it's like these people still have to work out. I mean, you still have to.
Yeah,
You
you
can't.
still
You
have to
can't. Yeah,
work very hard.
you can't just take something and then all of a sudden the next morning you wake up and you're just like, oh, I put on like 30 pounds of muscle. No, it's, you still have to work out and get in that shape. But I mean, yeah, 100% the natural way is definitely, I mean, if you look at some of the long-term effects though too, if you take some stuff, you know, so that's another thing that a lot of people have to look into. But for me personally, I mean, there's a lot of human error in it too, especially when it comes to some placings and whatnot, where, but I mean, like, you get that in every sport. I mean, being a baseball pitcher, trust me, with the umpires, it's like I get that 100% about all the human error that can be made. But yeah, but that just goes naturally with any other sport. But now, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Um, I don't really binge watch anything, but right now I've been just turning on Grey's Anatomy from the beginning. Yeah, so I don't even know what season they're in right now, but I was like, I want to watch this, so I'll just turn it on while I'm like doing stuff.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm currently watching. If you've ever heard of Black Mirror, It's
Yeah.
the TV. Yeah, so they released the new movie called Bandersnatch, but it's a choose your own adventure. So basically, you get to choose what happens in the movie. Like I can't even really go into it because it's just so weird to explain. But it's let's just say like I've watched the hour and a half movie for about 5 hours and I still haven't gotten to every ending. So I'm trying to work my way and see if I can get a
It's
better
like
ending than what I've got.
books, like when
Yeah,
we were around the same age,
exactly. Yeah.
pick the
Yeah, 100%. And it's so weird because it's the first movie I've ever had that does this, and it transitions perfectly. So, like, one of your first choices, they just start out super simple. So it's like you can choose to have Frosted Flakes or like Fruit Loops or whatever for breakfast. But as soon as you choose that option, it blends seamlessly in with the movie, so it doesn't even look like it's like a cut scene or anything like that. It's just, oh, okay, then I'll have like Frosted Flakes or what. But yeah, it's so weird. But you play, he's like a video game designer, and then you're trying to like design the perfect game, and then stuff happens. Like the first time I tried it, I ended up killing the guy 20 minutes in because you can choose to fall off a balcony when you're in like a drug infused haze, and I thought that like he would just like be transported, and then it's like, oh no, the guy died, so then you have to try again. So yeah, but yeah, it's really really fun. And actually, I mean, when I get done with this, I'll start editing on some of the podcasts, but then I'll probably finish it up tonight before I go out with some friends. You know, I'll try and see if I can get one of the more endings in 100%. But now, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
um again, I don't really watch too
Mm-hmm.
much TV, but I really love Vanderpump Rules. That's kind of a guilty pleasure, and The Bachelor, but Vanderpump Rules.
Oh, The Bachelor, The Bachelor, The Bachelor, The Bachelor. All my girlfriends every Monday they gotta have their little parties and have their yep. The guys go crazy for The Bachelor.
For most of us.
Yep.
And you know what? If you haven't watched it, I've actually gotten a lot of guys to start watching it, and then they get hooked real fast.
I watched the season where it was Jake and Tenley, and then I stopped after that. That was the
Okay.
one season that I watched because I was in
But
like
you got hooked
yeah,
that season.
I was like in middle school, and I liked Tenley too, so that's why I got it. But then when she didn't get chose, I was like, yeah, this is BS. I'm not watching this. So yeah, I stopped after that. But yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, I have way too many to name. But now, what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Um, I love Miss Congeniality. That one is a good one.
Mhm.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I'll always
Yep.
watch that one. And you know what? The Santa Claus, I'll still watch that one even when it's not Christmas.
Yep. Yep, that is a very good one for me. Again, all my guy friends, close your ears, Princess Bride. I mean, that's my go-to. I mean, I'll never admit it in public, but yeah, I love that movie. It's my ultimate date night movie. It's my ultimate, you know. I'll give an example. I was typing my thesis paper in college, and that movie came on. I stopped what I was doing, and I watched the whole movie. So that's dedication, if there ever was. But now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Um, Probably to not worry as much about what was going to happen. And you know what? Even like 2 years ago, I would tell myself that, because now it's kind of like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You can change certain things, of course, but you do a lot of worrying when you're 18. And when I was 18, I'm going to be 29 in 7 days.
Mhm.
And I thought I'd be married by now. So here we are. But now I'm just like, you know what? When it happens, it happens. So yeah, less worrying. I can't say that a lot of people will ask, like, what, like, I've been asked, like, what would you change? And it's like, I wouldn't change anything because everything that's ever happened to me has brought me to where I'm at right now. So, but I would definitely I would tell myself to not worry as much.
Absolutely, because I say like, I mean, for me back then, I was a huge people pleaser. So if I could go back, I just tell myself, you know, like you're not gonna be able to please everyone. Just make sure that you hang out with the people that you know would truly really benefit you. So yeah, 100%, I get that as well. But now for our last question, the question here: what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Um, my favorite fashion trend, I'm actually not a very fashionable person.
You're talking to the king of unfashionable. I go to the store and I just say whatever fits, we're buying.
Yeah. You know what? My least favorite right now, I don't know of all time, but right now my least favorite is those white shoes. I don't even know what they're called, but they're like chunky and hideous. And then my most favorite, you know what? The crop top. You can never go wrong with the crop top.
Thank you. That's one of my favorite. But I'd say, I mean, well, not for me personally, but just to see people in, because I've rocked crop tops before, and it's different for guys. But I mean, this
Yeah.
isn't like the '90s when guys used to rock crop tops. But for me, I mean, being in the upper Midwest where it's gonna be cold as hell, I flannel is probably my favorite. Well, especially for this time of the year. But then my least favorite, I mean, my dad rocked one of these in the late '90s, and he scarred me for life. But he had a fanny pack. Now, don't get me
Oh,
wrong, girls can pull off a fanny pack, but guys,
oh,
sorry.
I don't like those either,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, girls can pull them off, but guys wearing fanny packs, it's like, come on. I know they're
Yeah.
making a small comeback, but it's like that's why I love to mention it every time on the show, just so I can stop it. If I can do one little ounce of good for this world, it's to stop the comeback of fanny packs. So I'm dedicated to that. But yeah, now we're done with the questionnaire. So now, are there any shows that you're currently getting ready for? Is there a date that you have in mind of when you're next going to compete?
So, I am actually taking an entire year off, which I've done before, but this year I just kind of decided. So I was gonna do a few more shows this past year, and after the first one, I just moved back from Europe. I was living in Italy for a year and a half. So I bought a house, just going through a lot of stuff, and I just wasn't into that prep. So I stopped after that one, and now I'm deciding to take the entire year off just because I kind of just want to like live my life and not be prepping for a show. So I'm actually, for the first time in like 4 or 5 years, I am moving to more of an intuitive eating approach for this year. So I'm going to focus on that, and just I'm going to travel a lot, which I did a lot of that in Europe too, but it was a little bit more strict because I was still prepping or getting ready for a prep. So yeah, I don't have a show in mind, but hopefully in 2020 I'll get back to it. And if I don't, that's okay too. I'm still like health and fitness and still all about that stuff. But we'll see. I'm at least gonna take this year off.
Absolutely, and I gotta ask, how is prepping in Italy? Because I mean, you're surrounded by great food, you're surrounded by wine, you're surrounded by just Italy. So how difficult was that to still maintain that mindset of like, oh, I can't go out and have this pizza, or I can't go out and drink this beautiful wine that they have? Was that really a struggle?
It was hard, but that prep actually was my most focused prep. And I don't know if it was because I was flying all the way back to the United States to do this show. It was a national show. So I don't know if it was that or what it was, but it was hard, and I traveled up until like 6 weeks out, and then I was not traveling anymore. Luckily I was on an American base, so I had like the American grocery store and everything. But it was definitely hard, like not going. Sometimes I would go out with friends and I would just sit there and drink water. But yeah, because I couldn't order the food because it was a lot harder to be like, hey, can you not put oil on this or whatever. So yeah, it was a definite struggle, but I did make sure that I wasn't prepping like the entire time I was there. So I had probably a whole year about where I wasn't prepping.
Oh, well, that's great. I mean, you got to enjoy the benefits of Italy, which I mean would be awesome. I mean, I've always wanted to travel abroad, but I haven't yet, so that's something that I definitely got to work on. But now, for our last question before we wrap things up, is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to?
Hmm. Um, my parents, I guess. If I was gonna shout out anyone, I would shout them out
Yeah.
because they support me through all the crazy things that I want to do. The bodybuilding, which like my dad just cracks up because he's like, I never thought I would be watching my daughter in basically a thong on a stage. But and then I mean, my coach Carson, she's amazing. She hasn't been my coach the entire time, but she's currently my coach. So, and I'm still working with her. She's also a really good friend of mine. But yeah,
That's awesome. So again, you guys, Rachel Cox, go and follow her on Instagram. I'll leave her links down below. And again, we wish you nothing but the best in your year off that you take off. I gotta say, enjoy it. Enjoy eating, more intuitively. Enjoy some of the food. I mean, that's probably something that you're extremely looking forward to. At least I know I would be. But
yeah.
again, you guys, Rachel Cox, go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to her Instagram down below. Thank you so much for coming on. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.